I just want to welcome all the American Levitical Kingdom privateers. I remember that. I got it written down. So
The meeting we were just on, it
yeah,
really
let's tell them about that. It was pretty
it
cool.
is, but I can't help but just be all the time, always. It's like, this is great, guys, but if you don't know your status, your standing, and your jurisdiction, you're going to end up just like those folks on January 6th. Let's do this, but you need to know your status, your standing, and your jurisdiction before you jump out there. It's like, yeah, I'm going to take swimming lessons, but I'm going to dive in the deep end day one. You might learn to swim and you might drown. Can't say which will happen. But I want these people to move forward. But it's like, this isn't just about self-governance. This isn't just about any one thing. It is about self-governance. It's about establishing the ecclesia. It's about understanding what the ecclesia is. It's about protection. It's how God's going to get this remnant body through these deep waters right now. And without it, they're gonna, they'll get shut down. They'll get, it's like, I'm just now really coming to understanding how important it is to have your trust and have that trust literally as a court of record. So if you're ever pulled in, it's already a court of record. And how are you going to do it? Apostille. You apostille that trust. It's already a court of record. You walk in with those documents and they're not a court of record, judge doesn't have to look at them, but they're already a court of record, you got him.
And also don't forget, Randy, that it is private, so you don't really have to expose any of that privacy.
You don't have to expose your trust
somebody.
even. You can expose you can have apostilled a cover letter of your trust that apostilles your entire trust.
Yeah, or like I said on one of our last C2K reports, you can redact pretty much everything on
Yes,
there
you did say
if you
that.
want to, and get that apostilled. And because they don't really care what the document says or what it looks like, they're apostilling or they're authenticating that certified, whoever the certifier was,
Right.
the notary, the registrar, whoever it is, that they're just saying this guy's legit.
Right, but if what I've been reading is if it is not published or publicly recorded, there's a judge does not have to. He doesn't have to enter it into court.
That's correct. That's Babylon
That's
rules.
Babylon rules.
But that's how.
So we just go
that's
record
how it
everything in the
goes.
county?
If your county records and
No.
doesn't register, my county records. Alabama has a county that records. In fact, Alabama literally doesn't issue marriage licenses anymore. You can create a marriage covenant, have it recorded in public record, apostilled, and it holds every bit as much. How do I want to put it? Legal weight for that union without allowing the state to regulate it.
Nice.
So you don't think when those two people have trouble determining, they decide they're going to separate their ways, and they're having trouble determining what stuff is theirs and what stuff is the other person's. You don't think the state's going to get involved?
I don't know.
If it's
My personal thinking is if the state didn't license it and they did that in the private, the state's going to say we have no compelling interest. You're going to have to settle your own matter.
Yeah, figure it out.
Unless one of the parties in, how do I want to put it, employs the state to do so.
Mm.
I think that's a little bit wishful thinking, personally. And here's why.
Well, before you tell me why,
Okay.
before you tell me why, answer this question. If they do determine to dissolve their marriage privately, and there is no license, and it's a private agreement, and they do so choose to dissolve that union privately and the state tries to get involved, can they then insist the state stay out of it?
Where's it recorded? Is it recorded privately in their house, or is it recorded at the county?
There you go. That would make the difference, wouldn't it?
Here's why. See, they've captured everything.
Right?
Okay, so they even have a section of statute that has to do with recording at the county level. Okay, so the presumptions are right there. If you record something at the county level, you're walking into the statutes. You're basically saying, hey, would you please administrate this if we run into any kind of conflict?
What if you just published it 3 days in a local something like Mount Vernon paper, a little rag that 3,000 people get. It's in some, it just says, a marriage covenant has been entered into between these two parties. Period. That's all it says. And it's literally a published public record, but it's not in their record. It's public record. Now, could you say you cannot enter into our dissolvement of this agreement?
I don't have a problem with that, because what you're going to get is an affidavit from the newspaper stating that it was run a certain number of days, according to statute. My problem is Babylon is the most presumptive entity on the planet, and if you do anything according to their statutes, it's like they just want to presume that, hey, you're volunteering to obey all of them, But that's going to be the case anyway. So I would say that publishing it in a newspaper, publishing it in a periodical, even a magazine. I mean,
you'd have better luck.
You can do any of that kind of stuff. But my personal favorite is to privately record it in your own house, and have somebody in your house responsible for maintaining those records. So if you ever need that record for any purpose within Babylon, because everything's captured.
Right.
So
right.
if you need insurance and somebody wants to know if you're married, somebody in your house has to have the authority to produce that
document.
Produce a certified copy of that document.
There's some things that are better left completely 100% in the private in your house, and there's other things that you would behoove you to have at least apostille recorded as a public record somewhere, so that if they drag you in, it is a court of record already, and they can't changes your standing if they drag you in.
Yeah, to me the line there is agreement.
Right.
Okay, if you have an agreement in your family and it's written,
right,
it's a really wise thing to go out and have it
like your trust,
so-called published. In the case of your trust, you just use a declaration of trust.
Correct.
You get that apostilled, and you're good to go. It's published, and
right.
That's all good.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah. Hey, guys, this thing behind me here is my house flag. There's a lot of people who are interested in how we determine how we do things. Like, some people have asked me, why is your house the House of DeHijo when your surname is Hidalgo? And I explained to them why, in my case, it made sense.
You were able to do something very unique and cool, though. It really does make sense.
Yeah, because Hidalgo is Hijo de algo, which means son of something. So I just took Hijo de and I flipped it over to DeHijo, which means of the sun.
Right.
So that's why I did that. But this here, see that big sun in the middle, is representative of the sun.
The sun god, okay.
Okay. No, not the sun god.
That's
Yeah, we know all about him.
Not the sun god, because we celebrate him on the 25th of
oh,
December.
right.
but
That's true. That's coming
This
up.
this
Not according to
Yeah.
Mike Heiser, but anyway, that's another story.
so this represents
Right.
Christ, because we're of the sun. Then you got a smaller sun over here. That's husband and wife. So you got husband, wife is the moon
Okay.
over here, and then there's 6 stars.
Okay.
That's each of my kids. I got 6.
Wow, that's cool.
That's 6, right? And then this tree here is kind of the lineage,
Family tree.
So where it goes from
That's
there,
nice.
right? So that's why I made it that way.
You put a lot of thought into that, and it's very cool. Very cool.
I had somebody design that. You know that place Fiverr,
Oh yeah.
Fiverr.com. Yeah, that's easy place to go find somebody who'll make a graphic for you.
Oh, now you know that I can do that. So
Oh, you can
Oh,
do
yeah.
that?
yeah, I'm doing
Okay,
one
let
for
the
a
world
couple of
know.
guys. Gary Donahoe and Karen. She drew out something, and I'm like, well, you can't really use a drawing. How about if I make it nicely? So yeah, I
Yeah.
designed mine. I've been doing artwork for 20 odd years,
I like
even more.
yours. Yeah, it's really nice. Really nice.
I need
So
one
let that
that's got Mars and Venus on it instead of the sun and the moon.
Ah, yeah. Well, men are from Mars, and women are from
Right.
Venus,
Right?
and all the other genders are from Uranus.
Is that Uranus, Missouri?
Yes.
So
If you ever get this way,
Let it
we're
be
going to go
known.
down there and we're going to take a picture. We're going to take a selfie.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Uranus.
Here I am at Uranus.
So anybody who needs any artwork done, let's give David some work.
Yay. Yeah, I'll help him out.
So, right, gentlemen, let's talk about some things. One of the things I think that we need to probably re-emphasize and reestablish is the concept of what to authenticate, because we have had some questions, and they reoccurring questions all the time about authentication and what it is that they're actually authenticating. So, David, you have what's your thoughts on that?
Well, what I'm thinking, initially, it's the same question I had in the beginning. So all I do is get them to say, yeah, this is an original copy, and then all of a sudden I'm free. How does all that work? This authentication. Why do I need it to get it authenticated? What about the people that say, hey, all you got to do is get your non-citizen passport and you're authenticated? And then there's people that say, well, you just have to make an affidavit and then record that affidavit in public, that your affidavit of freedom, or whatever that may be, whatever it may look like. So what is the magical power behind getting your birth certificate authenticated?
So, authentication is like buying a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it can get you somewhere, but without the bullets, it's no good. Okay, so let's break that down a little bit. Okay, by getting authenticated, what are you actually doing? Okay, bottom line, you are obtaining an original of that registered document that you've never had an original of. You've never obtained an original of that, because they don't send you an original. They send you a certified, a certificate of live birth, or they send you some evidence of title, not the actual title. They never send you the actual title. They keep that. That's in their records. That how do we know that? Well, they say it right on that document. The signature on that birth certificate is of a registrar.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what does a registrar do?
Register stuff.
Right. Okay. So a registered thing goes into a database. It goes into a file that is kept as some custodian of record keeps that document, and that document functions within the system that you've registered it in. So, and this is what we're trying to get people to understand, because I have skeptics who email me all the time now, and they ask me, what is it? Why do you say what you say? Well, so I want to make it very succinct and easy for people to understand. That registration document arose out of law. Somebody sat down in the chambers of Babylonian Congress and said, we need to register all births. Okay? So here's the form you're going to use to register those births. And by registering the birth, you are registering, you are submitting property, because there is no other thing you register.
Right.
You only register property.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what property is being registered? Baby poop? No. Is it the spit up? No.
Although that's a good idea.
You know what? That is a good idea. Somebody should try
send
that.
it to 'em.
And try to.
Here you go.
This is yours.
This is the part you get, right?
It is property.
No, so you're actually registering private property, and once you've registered it, it is no longer private property. Now it is public property because you publicly registered it. See, that's the same thing Babylon does and everything else. You register your land deed into the county, and what do? They give it a title. What's the title? Residential,
Commercial,
industrial, commercial, agricultural. They give it some name, and that falls under some part of their statute, and that's how they govern it. They govern it under that particular title. That's why they call them titles.
Right.
Right? Title 1, Title 2, Title 3 within the code. So that's what's actually happening when you register a property, which is the only thing you can register, because I've never heard of somebody registering something that isn't property.
Even intellectual property gets registered.
Yep. Even intellectual property. So when you register that property, you have now submitted it into a, let's call it a governmental apparatus that's now going to regulate that property. It's gonna presume to regulate that property. So everything in that property's life, which in this case is actual human being, right? Everything in their life that has their name on it, it's going to be regulated by that governing body.
When you registered, you said, I need taxes. Say it again, David.
Well, right.
That's why they charge property taxes.
Exactly, because when you register your deed, when you file your deed, and you're basically saying, Babylon, would you please regulate my land? They're going to give you a title. They're going to say, okay, now that land is commercial, agricultural, residential, whatever. And then they're going to say, okay, well, here's the taxes that come with that. Okay.
The administrative fees.
Yeah. All those things. School charges, all the different things that you get. Fire department, police department, all the different things that you are charged.
So what property should be private, whether it's land or your very child, when you register, you actually saying, I want this child or this property to fall under these codes and statutes that were limited literally only to the government, because we gave them 19 enumerated duties to govern us on. We said these 19 things we need to do together. We need government to perform. It's better than us individually trying to do it. But by registering, we have said, oh, we want you to regulate more than those 19 things. We want you to regulate this child or this land under the 6,000 code statutes and regulations you've created over the last 150 years. Otherwise, they never would have been. Those code statutes and regulations would have only been limited to making government do what government is supposed to do, and we would only be under those 19 enumerated that we asked them to take care of. Is that a true statement?
Yes, because, okay, you have to realize how modern birth certificates are. You realize that they didn't come about till the early 1900s.
Right.
There were no birth certificates. Your birth was registered usually in the family Bible or at the church. If you're Catholic, they registered everything in the parish, in the church. But that's how everything was taken care of, back then. But in the early 1900s, I'm going to put my conspiratorial tinfoil hat on at this point and say after characters like Edward Mandell House and Woodrow Wilson came about, all of a sudden now we're registering our biological property. We're, and now all of a sudden we're saying, okay, go to UNICEF on the UN website and read their information about birth certificates, and you'll be like, oh, here it is right here.
Exactly.
I have a copy of my grandmother and my grandfather. I have both of their birth certificates, one from 1903 and one from 1905. It's interesting to see. It's similar terminology. So, that's about when it started.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to ask yourself the question, what really necessitated this registration of biological property? Was it the fact that we really, after 1871, didn't have a legitimate, de jure government, but it was run like a corporation, and in order to register all the properties of that corporation, me and you, they had to create this biological registration thing, and if you realize that everything really kind of happened between 1900 and 1940, everything. We just got slammed in that time. Social Security came about during that time. The Banking Secrecy Acts and the Trading with the Enemy Act and all these different things happened in that time frame, where we were being just reformed as a nation.
And even though you're absolutely correct in your time frame, none of those could have happened if it was not for what happened in 1871 first.
Right.
That opened the door for everything that followed.
There had to be for those of you who are skeptical, let's break this down a little more. There had to be some point of dividing time where we ceased to be a nation of people and went into being some kind of something else. Okay? That was ruled by the people. There was a time, that just like when Jesus was born, a divided time, right?
That's the American dividing of time.
Yeah, we had some kind of a dividing of time happen in America at some point. You can say 1871. You could say after the Civil War, because there were. That was a time when the southern states were forced to adopt the 14th and 15th Amendment, okay, in order to come back into union.
Right.
All right. So the Reconstruction Acts was a big deal. So is that the time that it happened? I don't know. We can debate that all night. But something happened at some point where all of a sudden the biological property, we were being asked through pressure, through peer pressure.
So let me ask you this: you said the government de jure. Is that like soup de jour?
That's with truth.
Ah,
jure. De facto is without fact.
de facto means no fact.
One is a true government, and one is what took its place. It's
Well,
without
yeah,
fact.
what we have today is a de facto government. It's not what our original founding fathers set up.
Hmm.
It's nothing
In
like it
that document.
whatsoever. Yeah, that document behind Randy over there, that is definitely not followed at all. And so yes, we have a de facto government, whether you want to call it a corporation or a de facto government or whatever you want to call it. I call it Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay, because it is.
because it is.
It's Babylon. It has captured every element of our lives. So let's get back to the original question. The original question was, so why authenticate? What makes it so magic?
Mhm.
Well, again, you were asked to register biological property at the birth of your children. By doing so, you set a presumption upon them that they were going to be governed with or without their consent, which, by the way, is against the Constitution because they're supposed to be governed
The consent of the
consent.
people. Consent of the
Yeah.
governed, rather.
So, we by doing that and not giving us even a share of that property right, all they did was just give us evidence of it through a certificated instrument. Okay. They totally captured the whole operation, and now everything that has your name on it is presumed, whether you believe it or not, it's presumed to be something that's regulated under statutes. So to remove ourselves from that, we need that original. What we have to do is get that original. And you're not going to be able to go down to the custodian of record and say, oh, dear custodian of record, I sure would like to have that original back that I submitted to you that set all these presumptions upon me. Can you please give it back?
Hmm.
They're not going to give it back. In fact, you're never going to trace where it's actually at, because you'll ask this guy and they'll say, oh, it's over there. You go over there, you ask them and they'll say, oh, it's over there. You just have this wild goose chase situation going on. No one's actually going to tell you where the record is. There's all kinds of theories about it. The Vatican has them. There's all kinds of theories out there. And we're never going to be able to chase that down. So here's what we need to do. We need to get a hold of an original. That's how we take charge of that biological property, is we get an original. Well, their law, Babylon's law, states that when you authenticate, you get the original, just like the original. Okay? That's what their law says. How do I know that? Because when you get the authentication back, there's like a series of laws on the left-hand side of the paper. Okay? And one of those laws is exactly what I just said. You can go read it for yourself. It says that an authentication is just like an original. So now I have an original. What can I do with it? Okay, so now I purchased a gun. Okay? I purchased a gun. I can sit on it, never put any bullets in it, and I guess it'll give me some kind of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Make me feel like I'm protected. But am I really protected? No, because without putting the actual ammo in there, if something ever happens, I have nothing to use. I can't do anything.
So the authentication, when you get it back from the feds, that is your analogy to a gun. Now, what do we do with this?
Yeah, that is your original. You now have the smoking gun in your hand. That is the instrument that was used to register your biological property into Babylon.
And now I own it.
You now have
What do I do with it?
now you own that original. So what do you do with it? Well, so we tell people first to draw up a counter deed. So what's a counter deed? Go look it up. What does a counter deed say? It says it's a secret deed. Okay, that obliterates. Is that even a word?
Yes.
Obliterate. Yes.
That obliterates, destroys the public deed. Well, what was the public deed? The public deed was the registration of your biological property publicly.
Yes.
Okay. So destroy the public deed by making a secret deed. And people are going to be, they're going to ask the obvious question, well, how do they know you've done it if it's a secret deed? It doesn't matter if they know you've done it. Okay? You know you've done it, so now you can start acting like the eagle instead of the turkey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You can start acting appropriately. Because this all comes down to you.
Yes.
All right? Now, do you have evidence that you have the original? Yes. Okay? So you can now, with authority, move forward and say, you know what? Every time they try to presume something upon me, I'm going to take it as a solicitation, and I'm going to counter that solicitation and put it back on them. Make them the surety.
Mm-hmm.
Which literally is the system that we live under. Everything is presumption. Everything is presumed unless it is rebutted. We now have something that we can actually rebut withstanding.
Right. Now, see, I'm trying to avoid all the conspiracy theories.
Right.
Okay, I'm trying to make this very clear that the reason why authentication is so important is because you now hold that original. It is the smoking gun.
So now, if anybody tries to do anything to you, you just bring that out and share that.
That you have control over your own affairs.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay? That you are not under any statute. There's no statute that applies to you unless you contract it into it. You know, and you can do that.
Right.
Because everything that you do with Babylon is a contract.
Mm-hmm. So, just like a person may or may not know that you have a gun in your house for protection, they may or may not know that you have this tool as far as your authentication. However, in the event it's necessary, they will certainly find out.
Yes. Exactly. That's why it's a good gun analogy.
Yep.
Right?
So now I have all of these, is it or is it not a good idea to record this publicly?
That's okay, that's going to be up to the individual as to how they can justify it. That's the way I always put it, because, David, we are self-governing.
Mm-hmm.
That means Rick can't tell you what to do. That means Randy and David can't tell you what to
Randy,
do.
Your need. What's your need?
Yeah.
So, what would be the pros and cons of that? And do you have any situations where it may be, worthwhile, or other situations where it may be fruitless?
So, to me, the big con here is when you post, think of it this way. Let's not call it file or record. When you post something with Babylon, immediately their presumption is, we have authority over this guy,
right,
or this particular thing that was just recorded. Mm-hmm. Okay? Immediately that's their presumption. Is it true? No. But it's their presumption. So what can come out of that? Just a lot more headache. Why put yourself through the headache by publicly recording it and having them presume that you've asked for them to administrate it? I don't want that presumption in my life. So it's like, I opt not to publicly record anything. That's me. But we're each self-governing, so we have to make that decision for ourselves.
And there is a lot of how do I put this, financial incentive on their part to get you to be recontracted, to get you to not rebut a certain presumption. There's a lot of financial incentive on their part, not so much on your part, but there's a lot of financial incentive on their part. And you referred to it early on in your discussion, Rick, and just for a quick little proof text, you said people, we can argue this and you want to stay away from conspiracy theory. So here we go. In 1882, an act of Congress, okay? 1882. Was that not the time frame you were talking? Early 1900s, 1871, something happened. We have this time change. 1882, yep. Congress established what's called the Public Charitable Trust. And then you can get into the, C2K or QV and all that and get into a whole lot. We can go down a rabbit hole, but just the fact that they established this trust, now there's a financial interest. And sure, they're going to make presumption, and there's a financial interest for them to continually solicit, as you said, or presume upon you.
So what does that public charitable trust entail? What does it do? Is it like a big bucket of money they dip into every time they bring you into court?
Well,
so
we go a long ways here.
Well, in a nutshell.
That's where this can go down several rabbit holes. So you could look at it like this: public charitable trust. Look at Congress as the trustees of that charitable trust.
Like
and
AOC?
Like AOC. And look at all the stuff that they passed that's not for the benefit of we the people. Right? But they're trustees of this charitable trust, and it can get real sticky how you go into all this stuff.
Also can be referred to as a minor trust, and in a nutshell, probably the easiest way to say it is people think that government is run based on taxation and tariffs and fees. If this is government, about this much of it is run based on taxation, tariffs, and fees. The rest of it comes out of that trust. Things off book stuff that where did that money come from and where did it go? And it's never reported. You hear some reporter come up with some number, that's unaccounted for, and then that's the story dies. It's the end of it. They don't have to report that. It's off book, off record.
Black ops.
Well, you could call it off books. Or you could even call it double book
entry.
What do they call it? Double book entry, where they have multiple books, private book, public book, CAFR accounts, right? You can look into all this kind of stuff.
Where did all that money come from?
Rabbit holes.
You and me.
So they take it from your taxes and they throw it in this bucket and they do what they want with it.
It's not your taxes.
More than that?
It's not your taxes. It's okay. Edward Mandell House called it the ancient system of pledging. Right. So there's a pledge against your presumed labor for your lifetime. So again, that's another tinfoil hat thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Some people are going to say, well, you can't prove that. No, I can't. I can't prove it, but I can tell you that people have dove into the numbers, the books, and that they found that government, let's call them for a second, we'll call them government. I don't like to use that word because they're Babylon, but government could carry on for 100 years with just what they have in their coffers, okay, without ever getting another dime of tax.
They're selling futures. They're selling futures on that property, and you're right, Rick. You can get into some tinfoil hat areas, but there are those that have actually found within the Federal Reserve system, and it will be a Federal Reserve bank. They have actually found the routing numbers and account numbers, and it has been found. And of course, immediately they're written off as conspiracy theorists. But there is observational evidence continually that pops up here and there. It's just we don't want to go down that road. It's just the fact that you didn't own it, and if somebody owns something, they're going to own it in order to gain a profit from it, and you don't have control, you don't have status, you don't have jurisdiction if you don't own it. So owning it is number one priority. That is all. Everything else is secondary. We can chase a bunch of rabbits here, but
oh yeah.
But this is important.
Have you ever heard of derivatives markets?
Yeah, I sell puts all the time. You make 10% a month just selling puts.
I mean, there's derivative markets of derivative markets. Okay. I mean, there's stuff that only the Elon Musk of the world get to be involved in, because they're a big enough player they can hit a particular platform. Okay.
Not a seat on the trading
platform.
floor, a platform.
Yeah.
That's a specific term.
Yeah, specific term. Maybe I wasn't supposed to say it, but I said it. Okay?
We won't tell anybody.
Until it gets out on the internet, right? So, look, how do you think Soros gets his money? You really think that his NGO raises all that money that he's got?
So would you say this is analogous to a fiat currency based in a derivative market and the assumption that any individual on average would produce X amount of income?
I'm going to let Randy respond to that.
You're selling futures.
Pretty much. Yeah, but people need to understand that a fiat currency is like, it's not real money. It's just based on any work. So like, hey, I can get this gerbil, and I know my gerbil is worth $100 because I can put him on the wheel and he's going to produce $200 worth of electric over the next month. So it's the same kind of thing. Our work, they're betting on the future of it.
We are what sustains that fiat currency, because there is no commodity, there is no value. We are the value behind that, basically.
Which is probably why they're not worried about debt so much, because they do have all that money tucked away and they're just not telling everybody. We're just using the debt as a shelter, I guess, if you would.
I know you're getting over my head at that point, so because we're getting into the debt-based economy and stuff, but we're straying away from the power of authentication and that ownership, that Rick started out with. If you don't understand anything else out of this discussion tonight, it's you need to hold that original if you intend to that presumption of Babylon. You need to hold that original.
Right. So, and that was the whole point.
Self-governance.
That basically the whole point behind the bigger picture is now you're in control of that, and they are not, and they can't sell futures on your stock.
Yeah, and it even goes beyond that. You start to realize that even their court systems run on this bonding program, right? It runs on this whole bond thing. So when they present you with a solicitation to invite you to participate in their bonding program, you actually have the capacity, because you're self-governing, to fire back with a counteroffer, to basically tell them, what it's going to cost for them to remove your liberties, right? Mm-hmm. So, these are the kind of things that those are high-level self-governing operations. and we want to get everybody to the level of being able to operate like that, where if Babylon solicits you, you don't feel the angst, the fear, because that's all they have, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
All they have is fear. I mean, the three-letter agency. When you hear that word, somebody says IRS, it's like the fear of,
Exactly.
the fear of 30 years of jail time comes upon you.
When they can't even do that.
Well, not if you're self-governing, and you know, if somebody solicits me, I know that I'm not gonna allow it. I'm gonna counter it, the solicitation.
So what is the people might say, okay, now I own myself, but how does the cop know that when he pulls me over because I'm going 1 mile over the speed limit and he pulls me over and he's going to say this? How does he know? How does the judge know? How do all these people know? Do I just go in and say, too bad for you, I'm authenticated?
Well, there's two things. I'm being very cautious, right, Randy? Right here.
Because these are the questions that come up.
Yeah, was I don't want to give people, a pretense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't want to give anybody a pretense. But I'll tell you that there's awful lot of empirical evidence, experiential evidence, that there are people, many people actually, when after authenticated, and they're approached by an agent of Babylon. Many times they get told, have a nice day. Okay, doesn't always happen, and when it doesn't, usually it's a breakdown in capacity. So one of the things that we're wanting to teach and we need to all learn is how to handle a confrontation with an agent of Babylon. How do you handle yourself? How do you put them in a place of responsibility and not have them put you in a place of responsibility? Mm-hmm. So those are the kind of things that we all need to start understanding. We all need to start living by. And we did a show on the Hidden Day C2K report that talked about not being a butthole.
Right.
Right. And that's the first thing, is being confident. It's just business.
Mm-hmm.
It is business.
It's just business.
And that's a mistaken reality too, Rick and David, that, I'm authenticated, so, nanny poo poo, like David did a while ago. Because you have to understand, if they pull you into their courts, that judge can wear 4 different hats. First, he's a trustee. Second, a criminal hat. Thirdly, a civil hat. And fourthly, as an administrator. And if you don't know where you're standing, he can get you on under any one of those as the trustee over the estate, as a criminal judge over a crime. Because if you commit a crime, I don't care if you've got 47,000 copies of your authentication posted all over the United States. If you committed a crime, you committed a crime, and they do have not only the ability but the authority to adjudicate that crime. So there's the trustee, the criminal, the civil. Do you know where you stand within civil law and the statutes and the codes? And finally, if you're not the administrator and you're not the trustee, the judge is automatically going to imply a trust on you and become the administrator and the trustee of that. So you have to be very careful. You better live righteously and learn to self-govern in a righteous manner, maybe with righteous principles, perhaps.
Yeah, if you're a self-governing pickpocket,
you're still a pickpocket.
Yeah, you're still a pickpocket. That's not good.
Yeah, so any injury. Now, what would be considered an injury to another person? Because under that would be the criminal, and the only thing we are, under their jurisdiction.
Yeah, so that's a really good question because, most of the time when you're being forced into a court, you're coming up against the state of Ohio, the state of New York, the state of, South Dakota, whatever. These are fictions. You can't injure a fiction. How do you, how does a fiction become an injured party? What it is they're making a solicitation on behalf of that entity that they are agents of. So a report has been made by somebody within that system against you, and now they're coming after you because you've hurt the system, right? So now there are ample ways of counter offering within that system, especially before you go to court, because the Bible is the answer to everything, and it tells us to work it out on the way to court. Right,
That's
Randy?
correct.
Okay, so it's important that we do that. We don't want to enter into their den of vipers, run by all the Attorned Ones. We want to work it out on the way before we get there. An actual injury that you do to somebody that actually injures them or their property, an actual man, woman, or property, those are things that the Bible tells us to go work it out with them. We're not supposed to go to court. In fact, if they're Christians, Paul admonishes us not to take our brother to court, where we be judged by heathens. Okay, so we're supposed to work those things out, and we can do that. We can use arbitration. We can use lots of different methods to work things out with our brother, so that we don't ever have to go to court.
So now that we have the authentication, how is that different? Like some are saying, just go get your not U.S. citizen passport. Now, what does that do for us that authentication wouldn't do?
So if you go get a state citizen passport, what do they call it? American National Passport, any of these kind of things. Are you, by getting that passport, are you holding the original document that you gave Babylon the presumption to manage your biological property? Are you getting that original document?
No. So that does stand like a good reason. My question, I guess, then is, why are some saying that it does all the same stuff? So what you're proposing is it doesn't really do all the same stuff. It does a lot of the same things.
So the theory is that your passport is like a flag, okay?
Okay.
That it shows your jurisdiction. If your passport shows that you're a state citizen rather than a federal citizen or a 14th Amendment citizen, you might say, that does give you a different type of capacity. But have you dealt with the real issue yet? Have you dealt with the fact that even at the state level, Babylon exists? Babylon even exists at the county level. You know?
And chances are, if someone's going after a passport, if they haven't authenticated, if they haven't established themselves already as the holder of record in due course or as a state national, chances are they're going to recontract themselves. They're going to go to a post office, and you cannot get the type of passport we're talking about through a post office. It won't happen. It can't happen. If you don't know how to fill out the forms, you will find yourself with nothing more than a travel document that is no different than the driver's license you're already carrying around in your billfold, and you have recontracted. You are, as Rick said, you are nothing other than a 14th Amendment U.S. citizen.
Mm-hmm. So it would be analogous to a badge then. If you had the gun is like the authority and the force behind it, then the badge is just showing someone else that you have that authority.
Yeah, that'd be a good analogy.
You could say it's like a badge.
Okay, so it's nice to have, but it's not the real power behind everything.
The real power behind everything is our law form, which is the Bible. And most people don't realize that Babylon recognizes that still, because every kingdom on earth, every government on earth, every dictatorship, every democracy, and there's only been one republic, but every monarchy, every form of government on earth is a religious form of government, because there's only two kingdoms. It's always spiritual. It is always spiritual, and it is the kingdom of dark and the kingdom of light, the kingdom of God, the kingdom of Satan, and it is prolific throughout the scriptures. Satan recognizes the authority of Jesus Christ. Satan recognizes the authority of Yahweh God. He knows that standing. He wants to usurp it. He is a usurper. That's why Rick calls us Babylon. It's continually trying to usurp the authority that is God. Just continue trying to usurp the government that is God. God is government. And even Babylon, even every system in the world, they recognize the authority that is true government. In fact, in our government, it's written in public law 97-280, the Bible is law. They recognize it.
Any particular Bible?
Particularly the when that was passed through, they were looking at the 1611 King James, but I don't want to get into that. We're talking the Word of God. I don't care.
Message Bible. I'm sure they're going to be like, "What is that?"
I don't care. We're talking the Word of God. My point is, Babylon is this system of government. It is either a government that is of God, or it is a government that is of Satan. Mm-hmm. Satan does recognize God's authority. That is our authority.
And that's the trouble. That's the real trouble, Randy. The people either believe that or don't believe that.
You either live under God's authority, or you live under Satan's presumptions, because it is presumed that you are serving Lucifer. It is presumed you are serving him.
So, and I have a question about that too, because maybe Babylon presumes that you're serving Satan.
That's what I'm referring to.
But when the Bible says your name written in the Lamb's Book of Life from the foundation of the world, and then it talks about also sometimes blotting your name out. That tells me that the presumption is actually, in reality, the other way. Not by Babylon, but by Yahuwah Elohim. The presumption is, you are my creation. I wrote you in the book of life. But if you turn away, if you walk in transgression, if you decide to go the broad way rather than the straight
if you
and narrow,
reject my offer,
then I will blot you out. Okay, so that's interesting, because every person needs to understand that, and it would change the way that they perceive things. Okay, God is in control. Period. Amen. Okay. And if we read the book of Job, we also come to the knowledge that Satan has to ask permission. Okay? He has to ask permission to do damage to you.
And
All
don't
right?
think he's not
He's
doing
going
that
to-
all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Hey, Peter.
Sure, but
Satan asked if he could
but my-
slip you like we.
Like,
Oh,
yeah.
no. What'd you tell him? Yeah, it's okay.
So, but see, this is relevant to the whole conversation that we're having, because really the only reality is God. That is the only reality.
Right.
Okay? Satan's not even reality. He's a fiction in that he has to go ask permission to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah, his authority
He
is
literally
definitely
has
fiction.
to-
That's a really good point.
Yeah, he has no authority. Zero. None.
It's presumed.
And it's like everybody has this concept of doom and gloom. I mean, you know, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but we've all been on Zoom calls and conversations where it's doom and gloom, doom and gloom, doom and gloom. Well, you know what? Doom and gloom is something that you're creating, that doom and gloom, because the truth is God. That's the truth. The truth is God, and all the rest of it really is just fiction, because you know he doesn't have that authority. He has great skills of deception. He has amazing skills when it comes to deception. He's really
And
good
he
at
has
it.
a certain amount of time of freedom to apply that deception. So we don't want to get away from the reality of what he can do, because he is actively, according to the Bible, he is actively seeking who he may devour. He's not just laying in wait. He's actively seeking
He
who
is.
he may devour.
He is, but ultimately, we still have that. The victory's already
It
ours.
is, and we're not to fear that who can
It's-
only hurt the body, but him who controls the soul. That's who we fear. The beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. He is the owner of
Right.
souls.
So anyway, the point I'm trying to get to is that we focus on all this, you know, political stuff, and that political stuff is just it's being driven by lies. All of it's being driven by lies. The media is probably the most sensational driver.
I don't think probably is
those
a proper
lies.
term to use in that sense.
Well, okay.
Absolutely.
But they're telling us stuff that we know is complete malarkey.
Right.
And yet, what do? Most of us. We cower in the corner, we're biting our nails, we're pulling our hair out. You know, that's not what happened to mine, but you know, that's what.
This leads me to a couple of things. I mean, when we understand and properly decipher the word, you know, it says Satan roams about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. We're like, oh, he's coming out, and you know, and a lion that roars can't really bite you, and all this stuff. But no, he's coming like Christ, because Christ is the lion that's coming, and he's coming with presuming the authority of the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And that's really what we have to look at it. Now, when we understand this whole narrative in the C2K report, we can fully understand that Satan is trying to take the position of Yeshua HaMashiach, our king. That's what the roaring of the lion is. He's like, I'm the king, I'm the king. Even Christ himself said, you know, many will come saying, I am the Christ. And that's kind of how I look at that.
Satan said, I will, I will, I will, I will, I will, I will.
So he's trying to usurp that authority. So this leads us down the path of, you know, we always get the yellow-bellied sapsuckers that come out and say, oh, Romans 13.
Oh boy, don't get me started on that.
So
Rick's got his Bible out for. He's got something. He's got
He's going to hit
Really
you.
on his right.
No. I just okay. This just hit me in a certain
This
way.
just in.
It just hit me in a certain way. I've been thinking on this for a few days. Randy's already got a head start on this because we were on a call the other night and I kind of mentioned this, but I was reading this. There's this thing about Revelation 13:7. You being a prophecy guy, David, I'd love to have this conversation. So Revelation 13:7, it says, "And it was given unto him to make war with the Kodeshim, and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the Sefer of life of the Lamb slain before the foundation of the world." Now, I want to point something out that's really, really interesting. Verse 6, right before you come into 7, it says, "And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against Elohim, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven." Okay? And them that dwell in heaven. Now, first reading of that, you're thinking all the creatures in heaven, all those who inhabit the heavens up here. Okay, first reading. But as you keep reading, I'm realizing here, this has got multiple meaning. It also has to do with jurisdiction that we're in. Okay, because in verse 6, it comes off of talking about and them that dwell in heaven. So this beast is blaspheming and saying terrible things about those who dwell in heaven. And then it says, "And it was given unto him to make war with the Kodeshim, and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds, tongues, and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him." Now, think about that. People are thinking, man, if I'm here, I'm going to be forced to worship him. Because they're thinking, I'm dwelling on the earth. But you're actually not part of that dwelling on the earth.
Not if you have an embassy.
Right. And if your name is not blotted out of the book of life, if your name is in that book of life, you dwell in heaven. That's your land. That's your jurisdiction. That's your home. You are one of those who dwell in heaven. You are not one who, in this context, is being forced to worship the beast. Well, sure, they'll try. Okay, so that, to me, okay, people need to hear that right now, because all I keep hearing from people is, we're in the end times, woe is me, I'm going to be forced to take the mark, I'm going to be forced to take the vaccine. I just killed YouTube right there. I'm going to be forced to do this, I'm going to be forced to do that, and I can't do anything about it. Well, yes, you can. That's what we're here for. The C2K report is telling you what you can do about it.
And it's, again, Rick, it's two kingdoms, two kingdoms, two kingdoms, two kingdoms. Which one are you living in? And they've been at a clash since the very first record of Genesis, and they're going to be in a clash till the end of this earth, until the end of this age, until God's time is fulfilled.
Here's an interesting thing that people don't think about either. So if you're an inhabitor of the earth, okay, you don't have any authority. You have no authority over earth. You have no authority in heaven. You have zero authority. Okay. It's only those who are dwellers of heaven who have authority over both.
Ooh, that's a strong word, Rick, because we hear even in political movements, we hear it all the time: dominion, dominion, dominion.
That's where
dominion.
I'm going.
But where does dominion
going.
You can't have dominion without authority.
That's where I'm going, because this is the thing, right? We just got through with a Zoom call on, help me with the website. What was
Liberty
it?
Action Network.
Liberty Action Network. Everybody go there. If you're watching this roundtable.
Yeah, we have a forum over there. You can jump in.
We do. And you need to go over there and check it out because what they got going on is really cool.
We need to see
But
that
here's
grow
the thing.
across the nation.
We do. We need to see that grow across the nation. That'd be awesome. But you know what? Those, I love the fact that she's basing it on a first, what you call it, first God?
Yeah, God first.
Or God first. God first, okay? I love the fact that she's doing that because let me tell you what she's just done. And she may not know the entire significance of what she did, but only people who are in Christ have the authority to make those changes.
Yeah, you can yell and
Those other
scream all you
guys
want.
don't have that authority.
But if you're a slave, it doesn't do you any good. So that is thelibertyactionnetwork.com.
Yeah, go there. Go there. Sign up as a member.
Yeah, it's starting in Ohio, but we're going to be moving it all over the states. So just jump in now and jump into a forum and then put in there, hey, I want to start this in my state as well.
And you know that gentleman on there that's doing the ministry about the family, his ministry and our ministry need to be like this. Because when we talk about building your house, building your embassy, it requires the family. Okay, so it's very important. We need to be like this.
So what about the people that say they scoff and they're like, oh yeah, you just, you say that and it's spiritual and no one's going to pay attention to you. What is your experience in that, where people just, they'll say, oh yeah, tell the cop that you're in the kingdom of darkness and just see what he says. He'll laugh.
Okay, the cop needs to know who you are, what place that you're standing in. Okay, so the Bible tells us what? The Bible tells us to put on the full armor of God, and then it tells us to stand.
And when you're done standing, stand.
Stand some more. So he tells us to stand. Well, stand means you got to know the place where you're standing. Okay? So what is your standing? At the moment that guy comes up to you, he is an agent of Babylon. You're an agent of the kingdom of Christ. So now you have to put him in a place where he is going to be surety for the transaction because he is about to put you into a transaction. He's going to ask you for information because he's trying to determine standing. Okay? He's trying to determine who you are. So he can say, okay, he's got a driver's license. That means he has to follow these laws, right? Okay? Now, if you don't have a driver's license, they're going to try to put that law on you, that statute that says you have to have a driver's license, right? But here's the cool part. They really can't do anything to you if you're operating your private property. The reason they have authority of any kind over you is because that vehicle that you registered into their system, you're operating under their terms and conditions.
They own it. State owns it.
They own it. You don't. All you have is evidence of title, the certificate of title. You have evidence of title. You don't actually have the title. Okay, until you've registered that title into your embassy, your house, whatever you want to call it.
But that's a difficult question, David, because they're people like you and me and Rick, and just like you and me and Rick, there are good people, there are jerks. When we go to work, when we go out in public, there's people that are jerks, there's people that are good people. Same thing is true, when they hire onto a position in law enforcement, they get good ones and bad ones. But how you react to him is going to, number one, make a huge difference. Is it is it a God response? Is it a Christ-like response? He's doing a job that he is being paid to do, and your response should be a response of respect. And as Rick said, it's up to you not to say, I did this, therefore. It's up to you to say, sir, let me explain something to you about who's going to be surety in this transaction from this point forward. And if you don't understand that, you really need to, check with your legal department. You need to help him understand, not say, as you did earlier, that'll get you in cuffs, because believe me, they have the ability to haul you in. And then again, it's up to you to know and understand surety, who's surety, understand standing, understand jurisdiction, understand, how you're going to, what hat that judge is wearing. And we mentioned 4 hats earlier. So that's a difficult question, but there is some legitimacy to the fact that you have a different standing, but it's not up to him to know that. It's up to you.
Let me tell you where it starts.
Where does it start?
Would you tell us where it starts?
You ask a specific question about being confronted, by a police officer. Usually that's going to be a traffic stop type of situation. Right. Okay. So let me give you a specific answer. The first thing he is going to see that's going to give him evidence of the fact that he has jurisdiction over you is your plate. He's going to see that plate. He's going to see that registration sticker on there. It is going to say, oh, that's registered in the state. I'm going after this guy. Okay. If a police officer makes a conscious choice for me doing nothing but just traveling up and down the road to pull me over, they're going to be surety for a very large sum of money. Okay? Because the first thing they're going to do is they're going to violate their own understanding. Pulling me over after you've noticed that I have a private tag on my vehicle, on my automobile.
And if you were not endangering anyone else on the road and you were following, the traffic rules of the road, so that because those aren't there just to make you miserable, they're there to keep everyone safe.
No, and you know what? Those are things I'm a stickler about. Going
the speed limit,
15 and a 15. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
those kind of things. So that's not a problem. If one of those, if one of the jerk kind of police decide that they're going to mess with me after seeing that I have a private tag on my vehicle, on my automobile, I'm going to know right away. Because the first question I'm going to ask them is, good afternoon, officer. What interest do you have in my private property? That's the first question I'm going to ask. Okay, so if you're a cop that works in Salem, South Dakota, and you're listening to this program, that's the first question I'm going to ask you. So be ready. I'm going to ask you, what interest do you have in my private property? Because this is literally my private property. It's not registered in the state. It's registered privately. So it's private. It's private property.
Rick, what most people don't understand, most of the small town, some probably even larger cities, but I do know in many small towns, who is training the police officers in the law in that town? I mean, after they've come out of the academy or whatever, they're going to be hired as a police officer. Is it not the city attorney that is going to train those officers in the law?
They're going to be a part of it.
Yeah, he's going to be a part of it. I'll guarantee you
Yep.
that the city
Yeah.
attorney, that who makes atonement, is going to be the one training them. This is
Yeah,
how
we
the
got-
law works, boys.
We got to make this much money per month. There's a quota. There always has been a quota. I've got officers in my family who will just tell you that. So, anyway.
Mhm.
But you know, and I don't know how long we've been going, and if David's got more questions, but I was just looking at my notes that I had made here. You know, and we talk about presumption a lot, and I actually had this in my notes that presumption comes from registration. But I do have a nutshell statement that if we're ready for that, we can throw that in if we're ready to start wrapping this discussion.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up. I just wanted to just tie that up when people see, they use the Roman 13 argument real quick. Moses' mother didn't comply. Daniel didn't comply. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego didn't comply. The apostles didn't comply.
Right.
So, just use that. But more importantly, it is analogous to, let's say, someone has been in a cage, or the fleas in a jar, or someone has been a slave. All of a sudden, they're free, but now they're scared to do anything because they think they still are that slave as opposed to the free person, or they think they're still in that jar and they can't jump any higher than this.
Might need a renewing of the mind, as the Bible says.
Oh, how fancy that is. Yes. Okay, that was it. Let's go.
Got it?
Did you
Oh, you
have
got
something
another one?
ready?
Yeah, I can't actually. The Bible tells a story about Jesus was with the disciples, and he's actually standing at what is the entrance to what is the gate known as the gates of hell.
Cave
He
of
says,
Pan.
Right, the Grotto of Pan. If we have established our house and the rules of our house and the trust for our house, our embassy is established as sovereign kingdom ground. It is sovereign ground of God. If we've done things right, can even the gates of hell prevail against that? They cannot. So here's my nutshell statement about authentication. The birth certificate is a certified security, and authentication is a transfer of the security from the issuer to your house, who is now the keeper of record.
That is what it is for us.
Mhm.
Because we're taking that gun that we buy, and we are going to put a clip in there. Okay, so it's analogous, what Randy just said, to putting a clip in that gun. Now we're ready.
Amen. So that should answer a lot of questions people have, because I asked them.
Well, I hope so, because I know that there's a gentleman, and I'm not real good at remembering all the names, who was having trouble getting things authenticated, and I wasn't really sure what the actual situation was that was going on there. Do you have an understanding of what was happening?
Yeah, basically he got a birth certificate. We'll leave his name private for sake of privacy,
Yeah.
but had a birth certificate, and it was from the town, but it wasn't with the county registrar. So we figured out in New York, they definitely want the county on there as well. So sometimes if like mine, I got it from Jersey, and it just happened to be, it was in the town I was born, but it was certified by the registrar of the county. So I didn't think anything of it. I just went and got it. But then I just learned something new, that, it does have to be, from the county first. So if you don't have the county on your birth certificate, just get it authenticated by the county first, and it should have the registrar name on it.
That makes me think of something else, David. A little tidbit here. Most people don't realize it, and like you said when we started, Rick, there's people who aren't going to believe this and say, well, I don't know, I've heard that's, the whole tinfoil hat thing. Look on your birth certificate. There are 2 dates on there. there are 2 dates on there, and they are not the same date. One is your birth date, the day you came through the canal and entered here, and the other is when they actually numbered that vessel. It is a registration date, and they are not the same date.
Yeah.
Mine says
Look
date received by local registrar. And my birthday is indeed different.
There you go.
Yeah. I want to make sure that we close in prayer tonight. But it's very important that everybody understands that when we come together on a round table like this, these are just, we don't come with ideas of what we're going to talk about. We just come and we just have a round table discussion about random things that are on our mind. So these are kind of special shows, these round tables, because you never know what you're going to get. It could be David comedy.
Knights of the round table, because we know we're able.
Yeah, it could be Randy poetry. You know, it could be my silliness or whatever. Who knows? My long-windedness, whatever. So, this we're trying to do this once a month, just to kind of get pressing questions out of the way. Everyone needs to be aware that David started a Telegram group.
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell them about that group and how?
Yeah, you can ask a lot of questions in there. We've been posting things. We'll be, as the shows come up, we'll post them in there as well. So get on Telegram. I would recommend you go to the website to get the app, because it's different than the Play Store or the Apple Store. Go to the website and download the app from there. It's more secure. And Telegram group is C2K Ecclesia, ECCLESIA. And if you forget that, you can send me an email, thehiddenday@protonmail.com or info@c2kreport.com.
Yep, well said. So, I think that pretty much covers everything. We got the website on there, so anybody needs any. And we're still working on a template. Did you ever put a control number on that template, David?
Yeah, you can. I will update the templates that are on there. We recommend a document number, just so you have it, and it does look more official that way. So we're just going to update those two. We're working on a couple other templates that we're just we're going to marinate on them a little bit, make sure it's what the Holy Spirit is looking for. But they'll be up shortly.
Template. Define template. That's an example. You have to make those documents your documents. They are specific to your house and to your needs and to what you're trying to make proclamation of or make rebuttal of. But don't think that, this is the document and it has to be written like this. These are templates, and that is nothing more than an example. It is not the document.
Think of it as like you're riding a bike and we're just giving you a shove.
Yeah, please don't write them like we do. Don't do that. You make your own.
You make your own.
By the way, last thing I'll say, I wanna make a point on this. The reason why we recommend a document number, okay, you when you make a document number, it kind of frames it at a particular time, and now the bad guys in Babylon who like to take our stuff and manipulate it, make us look like a bunch of terrorists, they can't do that because we have a document number on there that kind of shows this is what it was. So if they go change it and mess with it and put it out there to try to throw us under the bus like January 6th protesters, they can't do that. Okay, so document numbers are important for that reason. Okay. You want to lead us out?
Good, David.
Any, mini,
Right,
miny,
Father.
mo. David, you
Yep.
got it?
David's the
Yeah.
Bible teacher here, so
It's about Thank you, Father, for your grace, your mercy, and your commission for us to be ambassadors for Christ and to go get others and beg them to be ambassadors for Christ as well. We don't take this lightly. We take it very seriously. We are here for a brief moment in time, and we seek to do your will and purposes. So we thank you for the opportunity to do that here. We give you all the praise and glory. We lift up your holy name, and we can't wait to see you at home. Amen.
Amen. So for the three caballeros and to our American Levitical Kingdom privateers, thank you for coming. And remember, everything we do here at the C2K Report is all about the blood.